Hi there, this is Chris coming to you with another special spot tour. This time I'll be rediscovering the falls of Deep Creek. And before there was a Deep Creek Lake, there was just Deep Creek. And that was before 1925 when the lake was formed. It was a well-known landmark in the area, mentioned in a number of historical accounts of the area. And one in particular had a very detailed survey of Deep Creek. This was James Shriver's survey of the creek and its environs, and his survey was the purpose of that was to hopefully establish a continuation of the C&O Canal past Cumberland. And one of the plans was to flood Deep Creek by building a dam so that it would form a navigable lake for barge traffic to continue west. And in this extremely detailed survey of Deep Creek, he mentions waterfalls along Deep Creek and a peculiar rock formation called the Devil's Castle. I'd never seen anything about these before or after that account, and they got me very interested in trying to find if those were, in fact, just covered by the lake or if they were still things you could visit. And you can read some more and see some more on the history of the area for Deep Creek Lake in the blog post linked below. But for this presentation, I'm just going to focus on the falls and the Devil's Castle. You can see the original route of Deep Creek on this 1901 topographical map, and generally flowing from today's Sand Flat Road, generally this area, flowing in a counterclockwise direction, a big horseshoe shape where it flows into the Youghiogheny River. And Shriver, as I discussed in 1824, did a very detailed survey of Deep Creek with the intention of proposing to flood it and create a lake, navigable for barge traffic. And he mentioned and mapped the falls of Deep Creek, which we'll see here in a minute. That again, the orientation on this is a little bit different than you normally see north. It's pointing in this direction instead of straight up, but you can see generally again that course of Deep Creek flowing in that horseshoe direction, that horseshoe shape, counterclockwise. And here where it meets the Youghiogheny River, he has labeled falls of Deep Creek. He's also labeled Swallow Falls and Muddy Creek Falls, so there was no potential that he was just confusing them with another one of those falls. These are clearly labeled falls on Deep Creek. He also describes a very interesting sounding feature, the Devil's Castle, and he describes it as a remarkable mass of rock in a great measure separate and distinct from the general bank, and it was so undercut and hanging over the viewer that on raising his eye, the summit of this terrific pile is seen completely overhanging him. A glance at its water-worn and loosely connected base so strongly induces the belief that the mass above him is tottering to his fall, that he is involuntarily impelled to hasten his steps onwards to avoid the apparent danger. The rude character of this pile has given it the name of the Devil's Castle. And that sounded like something I wanted to check out, but whether it was just kind of an exaggerated feature or if also very likely it had maybe just fallen at this point. All that rock finally came down. Or maybe it had been flooded and covered over by today's lake. I'd written that blog post and put that quote out there and the desire to see if I could find the Falls of Deep Creek. And one of the viewers of the video about the blog post sent me this postcard from his collection that had labeled as the Falls of Deep Creek, 1909. And it was clearly different than any of the other falls I've seen in Garrett County. It didn't look like Swallow Falls, Muddy Creek Falls, Tolliver Falls, those in that kind of that little area there, or Laughlin Run Falls. Those are the big four of the county. didn't look like any of those falls, and it clearly did seem like another set of falls that hadn't been seen before or hadn't been seen since 1909. And here is generally where I would have thought from Shriver's map that these falls would have been. You can see today's current dam here. Oakland Sangamon Road crosses what's left of Deep Creek. Deep Creek, most of the water now of Deep Creek now goes through the power plant into the Occoquan. So there's a tunnel that's was built right along here. Most of this water now goes through the tunnel into the power plant and back out to the Occoquan here. And the only water that would be supplying Deep Creek is right in here in this little valley. So I didn't even know if Deep Creek flowed at all at this point. I'd never, driven this road many, many times. Never even really thought to look to see if Deep Creek was a flowing waterway, if it was just kind of a dry stream bed. But there's a bridge over Oakland or Sangamon Road crosses Deep Creek here on a bridge. And on this next map, I planned out kind of trying to get here to make sure that I wasn't going to be trespassing on any private property. Here is that bridge, Oakland Sangamon Road, that goes over Deep Creek. Here I've highlighted property of Brookfield Renewable. That's the operator of the dam. That was private property I wanted to avoid. But when you looked at all of this area on the north bank of this piece of Deep Creek is owned by the DNR, as well as this strip right in here is also owned by Maryland Department of Natural Resources. So all public land. Going to be a little, stretch in here. You could have maybe been worried, but if you just stick to the creek bed, you are fine, making sure you're not going to get on private property. So I parked my vehicle here along Oakland Sangamon Road, crossed over the bridge, and you quickly find an old roadbed that you can go down and get down to Deep Creek. And here it is. Here is the existing road up, and it'll be up to your left. You can look up and see the road and the bridge of Oakland Sangamon Road. And here's the remnants of the old roadway and bridge that crosses Deep Creek. It was an old metal bridge, and they never even tore it down. And it's one of the few, like those old ruins of stuff, it's still there. And I got down into the creek bed of Deep Creek and followed it for not too long and came to these very charming waterfalls here. And I did not bring that old postcard with me. I just had kind of a vague recollection of what it looked like. But I thought, well, given the lack of flow over here and the fact that those are, still very nice waterfalls, maybe this is it. Maybe I had discovered the falls of Deep Creek here. And I had Deaky checking out those falls there in case that was it. But it was a very charming little spot, very clear, nice water, flowers, and the water falling over the rocks there. And I even found a rock formation that was not very impressive, but still maybe would have been this Devil's Castle. It was a rock overhang, kind of got under it, and you felt like it was going to fall over. It looked like some of it had fallen over at some point, so maybe I thought, well, this had just largely fallen and it wasn't nearly as impressive as it really, just was described to be by Shriver. But it was a nice day, and I really just kind of wanted to see the whole route of Deep Creek to the Occoquan, so I kept on pressing through, and again, following the creek bed at this point because it's in a very steep valley, so to, kind of go along the land part of it would have been too tough. It's just very rocky and steep. So really most of this you've got to just follow in the creek bed and stay as dry as you can, but there were some cool spots where the creek flows under some big rocks and kind of back out. And a little video, if you're feeling stressed out, this should be sure to relax. But it just creates a very nice natural water slide there that I didn't feel like getting that wet. But once it was past the water slide area, I continued on and found another nice little waterfall, what I'm calling now the Middle Falls, and what I'm calling now the Devil's Fort. Wasn't quite a castle. Looked like it could have been, but I was still kind of convinced like maybe I still hadn't really discovered the falls of Deep Creek yet. And these just turned out to be the Middle Falls and a smaller, a little more impressive than the last one, rock formation. But the best was yet to come. And I'll play this video for you. It kind of expressed how happy I was to find the full fall. Okay, Chris here, a very special off the beaten trail spot. I believe I'm at the Falls of Deep Creek. This is definitely Deep Creek, and I've encountered a couple of different falls that are coming from upstream, but this is definitely got to be the actual main falls that have been referenced in some historical writings that I've been reading. And the main one is an 1824 survey performed by Shriver, a guy named Shriver, who was looking for ways to extend the C&O Canal. So he really investigated the route of Deep Creek extensively. He mentioned and marked the falls of Deep Creek on his map, and he also noted a very interesting other feature. I can't remember, it was the Devil's Castle, I believe, or Devil's Chair, but it's a little tough to see through the trees. But he mentioned the impossibility of this rock formation, and that the viewers felt like it was going to fall upon them at any moment. And it's yeah, a little tough to see through the trees, but it is definitely hanging out by at least 10 feet from the ground. And clearly it appears like the more I look at it, the more it just feels like it's going to fall over you at any second. So really cool spot here. It is way off the beaten path, and I'm really glad I came down here to check it out. And a couple of still photos of those falls and the Devil's Castle, confirmed as the Devil's Castle. And again, it is tough to see with the tree cover, but it definitely lives up to the description Shriver gives. And if you get down there, it definitely appears like it's going to fall over on you at any second. And then for fun, I took that old 1909 postcard photo and lined it up side by side with a picture that I took, and I just got lucky in that I found a very flat rock that looked like, oh, that would probably be where you take a picture from. And it really turned out, you look at these pictures in the or the rocks in the foreground, and you see this rock in particular, definitely, you know, that rock and then the big flat rock next to it definitely are the same ones. And again, the tree cover is kind of covering up a lot of the falls. That one would be standing right about there, but really cool to have like lined that up and know I was standing in that same spot that someone was over 100 years ago. And that was the rewarding, you know, kind of the rewarding part of that was to recreate that history. And I'm sure people have been there since 1909, but it was a pretty cool feeling to have gone to a spot where, you know, many people haven't, and to really take the first pictures that I've seen, you know, and of those, and really kind of bring that out. So if you're looking to write your next chapter of your own personal history here in Garrett County or Deep Creek Lake, I'd love to help you make that happen. I'm a real estate agent, and helping people find their own slice of heaven is really what I love to do. So I'd love to talk to you about, you know, real estate or anything else about Garrett County history, places to go, things to do. And until my next video, hope to see you out and about on the trails and in the secret spots of Garrett County.